You feel that hum in the air, Detroit. That low electric buzz crawling through your ribs like the prelude to a thunderstorm that could change everything. That's not just weather rolling in off the river. That's the sound of a front office holding its breath, a rival G-Miz checking their phones twice in the middle of dinner, of every Lions fan who's been here through the cold. Dead years suddenly sitting up a little straighter because something's moving behind the curtain. If your heart's pounding for Detroit, make some noise down below, because the whispers aren't just whispers anymore. They're starting to sound like footsteps, heavy ones, echoing from Cincinnati straight into Allen Park. And no, this isn't about some practice squad filler or a bargain bin flyer. This is about a name that can make an offensive tackle lose sleep and a quarterback start feeling phantom pressure before the snap. Insiders are saying the kind of thing you don't just shrug off. A potential deal that would plant one of the league's deadliest pass rushers opposite Aiden Hutchinson, creating the kind of edge duo we've dreamed about since we were kids. Watching Barry Sanders juke defenders out of their cleats. Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, let that sink in. 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. A motor that doesn't quit, and a nastiness that fits this city like a glove in. December. Pair him with Hutch, and you're not just improving the pass rush. You're rewriting what offensive coordinators can even try against us. This city has been begging for a championship-caliber defense for decades, dragging itself through Dan Orlovsky's safeties, Calvin Johnson retirements, Barry walking away, Caldwell getting canned after winning, and all those playoff runs that ended before they could even start. Now imagine flipping that script. Imagine Ford Field vibrating on 3rd and long with Hutchinson on one side, Hendrickson on the other, and every snap feeling like the quarterback's last breath. Of course, nothing this big comes without risk. The Bengals aren't giving him away. They want picks, a 2nd rounder in 2026 and a 4th in 2027. And Hendrickson isn't stepping onto that field without a new deal, probably north of $30 million a year. That's big money, big gamble, big expectations. But what if it works? What if this is the final piece Brad Holmes has been hiding in his back pocket, the one that turns our defense from dangerous to downright lethal? What if this is the kind of move that doesn't just get you into January, but carries you deep into February? And what if, like every great Lions story, it all comes down to whether we've got the guts to actually pull the trigger before the window slams shut? Because right now, the fuse is burning, and if this domino falls, you won't believe who's next. Rip the horizon wide open. Detroit, let the roar crash through every shadow that stalked this franchise since the frozen echoes of 0 to 16. Because what's on the table right now isn't just a trade rumor. It's a seismic shift that could flip the NFC North on its head and make every rival's game plan feel obsolete before they even touch the field. You can almost smell the fear seeping out of Green Bay, like old Lambeau turf after a loss, because they know if this happens, Jordan Love's clean pockets become a memory. You can hear the nervous laughter in Chicago, the kind they use to mask. Panic when someone reminds them of how Justin Fields has looked with constant pressure in his face. And in Minnesota, somewhere Kirk Cousins is probably pacing his living room, picturing Hutchinson closing from the left and Trey Hendrickson ripping in from the right, knowing full well the checkdowns won't save him. This isn't just a move, it's the kind of calculated violence Brad Holmes has been hinting at for 2 years. The masterstroke that turns all that talk about building a contender into a message written in blood across the rest of the conference. Inside Allen Park, the air is heavier than the summer humidity. Players walk past each other without saying it out loud, but they're doing the math. If Hendrickson arrives, someone's snaps are gone, someone's role is changing, and someone's career in Detroit might be ending. Coaches are closing their doors, drawing up sets that only existed as fantasy plays in the offseason binder. Hutchinson and Hendrickson on opposite ends. Allen McNeil pushing the pocket from the inside linebackers. Free to roam like predators with no cages. Dan Campbell's probably already seeing it in his head. A 3rd and 8 in January. Ford Field shaking, Crowd so loud the opposing center can't hear the snap count, two edge rushers bending the arc like lightning forks, the quarterback frozen between stepping up into a collapsing wall or bailing out into another predator's grasp. And yet, behind the adrenaline, there's that quiet, knowing voice that every Lions fan knows too well. The one that remembers Dan Orlovsky's safety. The one that still aches from Calvin Johnson walking away when he could have been the final piece. The one that flinches at the memory of Barry Sanders leaving without a proper goodbye. The one that knows Jim Caldwell never should have been fired after winning. And the one that sat in stunned silence during wild card collapses. That felt like gut punches to the entire city. That's why this rumor isn't just news, it's personal. Hendrickson isn't a Band-Aid or a depth piece. He's a statement. 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. That's not production. That's terror for every offensive tackle in the league. He plays with the kind of relentless motor and edge that Detroit feeds on, a blend of raw skill and mean streak that this city understands because it's lived that fight for generations. You put that opposite Hutchinson, and suddenly the conversation about the Lions' defense changes from can they hang in the playoffs to who the hell is going to block them for 4 quarters. But this isn't Madden. There's a price, and it's steep. A 2nd-round pick in 2026, a 4th in 2027, and a new contract north of $30 million a year. That's a full-throttle, all-in move. When you commit that kind of money, you're saying the window is right now, that this roster, this group, this moment is the one you're betting the future on. And with that comes pressure on the front office, on the coaching staff, and on every single guy in that locker room to back it up. Now imagine the ripple effect. You don't just make the NFC North sweat. You make the NFC as a whole rework their priorities. The Eagles? They start prepping for a pass rush that can dismantle their RPO game. The 49ers? They start thinking about max protect sets they didn't think they'd need before the NFC Championship. Even teams like Dallas and Seattle, who thought? They just have to worry about Hutchinson, now have to figure out how to double 2 all-pro caliber edge rushers without leaving the rest of the defense licking its chops. And you can't underestimate the psychological impact inside Detroit's own sideline. Suddenly, young players like James Houston are pushed harder than ever to earn their keep. Veterans start smelling a real shot at a ring, the kind of thing you hear them whisper about on flights home after a big win. If we just had one more piece. Well, here's the piece. Here's the deal that turns potential into expectation, and expectation into an unforgiving spotlight that will shine all year. And yet, for every dream scenario we paint, there's the nightmare we all know could be lurking. What if it's too late? What if Hendrickson comes in, plays lights out, but the secondary can't hold up? What if an injury rips the heart out of the plan like we've seen before? What if we give up the picks, pay the man, and still watch the season slip away in a cold January night somewhere far from Detroit? This is the gamble, the kind of gamble that's burned us in the past, the kind that's left this city muttering next year for far too many years. But what if, just this once, the gamble hits? What if this is the year the breaks fall our way, the health holds, the stars align, and the city that's been starving for a champion finally gets to roar without it catching in our throats? What if Trey Hendrickson isn't just a trade? He's the trigger that pulls us into something Detroit hasn't felt in decades. So now we're here, staring at a fuse already hissing with sparks, knowing the blast could be the start of the most glorious run this city's ever seen, or another crater in a field of heartbreak. The question that keeps me up at night, Lions Nation, is simple. When the smoke clears, are we holding the trophy, or are we left holding nothing but the ashes of another dream?